Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Unwise Girls. I'm your host, Jacqueline.
And I'm your other host, Jane.
And we're the premier podcast all about your favorite series, currently Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Battle of the Labyrinth, Book 4.
That's not a series, that's a book.
That's a book. I made a mistake. How you doing today, Jane?
I'm doing pretty good. I bought some Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I got some cool ones. How are you?
Any more Egyptian god cards?
No Egyptian god cards. I got one of the Wicked god cards, though.
Ooh.
Which is like Egyptian god cards, but evil.
We have a little bit of Wicked god stuff going on in these chapters.
We sure do.
I'm okay. I'm super excited for these chapters.
These were packed. A lot happened.
Yeah. Do you want to take us away with the summaries?
Yep, I can just get stuck right into those.
Poggers.
Chapter 14. I duel my brother to the death. Despite Annabeth's doubts, Rachel turns out to be adept at guiding the trio through the labyrinth. Annabeth, still skeptical, asks Rachel if her parents will mind that she's gone, and Rachel replies that she could disappear for a week and they wouldn't notice. Before she can elaborate, the gang are quickly surrounded and captured by Kelly the Empusa and a pair of Dracanae. They're taken to an arena, which turns out to be the one that Luke was trying to negotiate passage through earlier. He's there, sitting in the stands with a giant with dark red skin, who wears nothing but a filthy loincloth. The stands are filled by Luke's army, hooting and hollering as another giant kills a centaur in the arena proper. The area is also decorated with flags bearing Poseidon's trident, as well as severed heads and human skulls. The red giant declares that he wants entertainment in exchange for Luke's passage through his arena, and Luke offers to have Percy fight to satisfy him. This intrigues the giant, whose name is Antaeus, as he's also a son of Poseidon. The deaths in this arena are, apparently, offerings to Poseidon. Percy is told to fight or else Annabeth and Rachel will be killed, and so he has to battle a demigod. It's not one that Percy's met before, but he introduces himself as Ethan Nakamura. Percy manages to defeat him, but refuses to kill him when Antaeus tells him to, enraging the giant. Seeing his opportunity, Percy challenges Antaeus to a one-on-one duel, with the stakes being that if Percy wins, he and his friends go free. Unfortunately, no matter how badly Percy wounds him, the ground rises up and heals Antaeus' wounds. Percy realizes that this must be because his other parent was Gaia, the Earth Mother. By using chains which are hanging from the ceiling, Percy is able to suspend Antaeus above the ground and kill him without him being able to heal. Unfortunately, Luke decides that since Percy's deal is with Antaeus, he's under no obligation to free them. And, out of options, Percy finally caves and uses Quintus's whistle to summon Mrs. O'Leary to help. In the chaos, Percy, Annabeth, Rachel, and Ethan Nakamura are able to escape. Chapter 15. We steal some slightly used wings. Chris Nakamura bails soon after they leave the arena. It turns out he was the one that Luke found in the tunnels, not Nico. The gang sets up camp, but Rachel shuts down Percy when he tries to talk to her about her home life, so he just goes to sleep. In his dreams, Kronos shows him Tyson and Grover fighting for their lives against an evil snake in the labyrinth, the chaos of which shakes the labyrinth and wakes them all up. They move on and eventually find Daedalus' workshop in a weirdly futuristic corridor. Inside there are wondrous inventions and art of all sorts, with even a window showing the Garden of the Gods in the Rocky Mountains. Then a figure steps out of the shadows, Quintus, who reveals himself to not be an agent of Kronos, but in fact Daedalus himself, in an automaton body. The mark on his shoulder is a brand from Athena, marking him forever as a murderer. He infiltrated Camp Half-Blood using the skills he picked up over thousands of years, and ultimately determined that Luke's side was more right in this war. And, to the group's dismay, he tells them that they're too late to stop him from helping them. Luke already has the string of Ariadne, and by killing Antaeus, Percy has given him passage through the arena. Daedalus reveals Kronos' promise to break the laws of life and death, allowing Daedalus to get Icarus back, make things right with Perdix, and get Minos, a judge of the dead in Hades, off his back. At this point, Kelly, two Lystragonians, Minos, and Nico burst in. Kelly tells Daedalus that he's been hustled and that they're going to hand him over to Minos now that they have what they need from him. This is why Minos needed Nico, to trade Daedalus' soul for his own and resurrect the Cretan king. He begins raising the souls of the damned, but Nico is able to take control of them and cast them back into Hades. In the ensuing fight, the gang plus Nico grab some improved wings that Daedalus has made and bail out of the window, unfortunately leaving Daedalus to fight for his life alone as he refuses to leave Mrs. O'Leary behind. Chapter 16. I Open a Coffin. The kids land in a visitor centre and make their way into town. The workshop has disappeared from the garden, so there's no way for them to be followed. In need of a ride, Rachel approaches a random limo driver and has an inaudible conversation with him. Whatever she says, it gets him to agree to take her, Percy, Annabeth, and Nico wherever they need to go. Annabeth also IMs Chiron a warning to get the camp ready for battle, but their chances aren't looking great. After driving around for a while, they find a way back into the Labyrinth and head for New York. Rachel and Annabeth start to bond while they talk about architecture, while Percy tries to convince Nico to come back to Camp Half-Blood. This is interrupted when they realise they've come to an exit that comes out on Mount Orthus. They have a direct line into the Titan stronghold. Percy insists on going out to scout, and finds Ethan Nakamura and 2 sea demons messing with Kronos' blade, salvaged from Mount St. Helens. He uses Annabeth's invisibility cap to get around them, and finds Kronos' coffin unattended. Hoping to put him down before it's too late, he flips open the lid and finds Luke in the coffin, looking completely dead with a hole in his heart. At this point, the Telkahines and Nathan... I almost said Nathan for some reason.
What? You have Nathan for you, brain.
Listen, he climbs a mountain in one of those episodes. At this point, the Telkahines and Ethan arrive, and all 3 of them assume the coffin is open because Kronos is rising. They present his new blade, and when Ethan drops to his knees and renounces the gods, the hole in Luke's heart fills, and Kronos rises from the coffin. Percy tries to fight him and gets his ass kicked before Annabeth, Nico, and Rachel intervene, distracting Kronos long enough for the group to escape back into the labyrinth. Chapter 17. The Lost God Speaks. Annabeth is devastated that Luke has been given over entirely to Kronos, but there's no time to mourn. The group have to keep moving. On their way, they run into Grover and Tyson. They're almost at their destination, and all 5 kids are able to follow Grover's nose to a chamber full of extinct animals. And in the middle of it all, Pan. Unfortunately, instead of agreeing to come back, Pan explains that he's dying and has been for thousands of years. Only the belief of the satyrs has sustained him, and all it did was prolong his suffering. He explains that he can't come back and save the wild as it's too far gone. Other people will have to save it themselves without him. He gives each hero a little pep talk, and tells Grover to spread his message after he dies. And despite Grover's protestations, that's the end of him. Pan fades away, leaving a wisp of power which goes into every one of them. So, what do you think of these chapters?
Percy Jackson has hit its stride. I know we said this with like the Titan's Curse or something. We were like, wow, Percy Jackson has gone up and it's not coming back down.
Well, we said there was a shit one and now it's good again.
Yes. This is like, imagine if you read a book and it was really good. Are you imagining it?
I am.
That's what this is like.
Wow, it's almost like I'm there.
Yeah, these chapters were great. I loved them to death. I adored them. I had fun. I had fun with them.
They were like, this is payoff city.
This is payoff city. This is payoff country.
This is paying off arcs for this book. It's paying off like Grover's series long arc. Like there's the stuff with Quintus, so the stuff with like Luke's sword being missing.
Right.
Like there's so much that gets resolved here.
We have to break this down. Okay.
Yeah, because like as long as those summaries were, I wasn't even able to fit everything into them.
Where do we want to start? Do we want to start with Ethan? Do we want to start with Ethan?
Let's start with Ethan.
Ethan is a new character. We haven't seen him before. He is he was one of the undetermined kids. He was in Hermes' cabin. And he's very disaffected. Because we also learn that he is a son of Nemesis.
Oh shit, yeah, I forgot about that. And
this book has been really piling on the like, how good are the gods really? Like, obviously Kronos' side sucks because like, oh, they're forcing kids to fight to the death, etc., etc.
The Olympians sure also do seem to be making kids fight to the death.
Yeah. And I think getting a character, we got Calypso before, and that's important. But now we've also got Ethan Nakamura, and he's so there isn't a cabin for a kid like him. This is the first demigod child of like a minor god that we've met.
Oh shit, is Nemesis not part of the like Big 12?
No, no, no.
All right, I see. Yeah, wait, that sucks.
That really does suck, doesn't it? And so he's kind of the perfect character to illustrate this point that, like, Camp Half-Blood and, like, the community as it exists is not built to, like, sustain a relationship in that way with, like, children of minor gods, even insofar as it, like, is already disaffecting for kids of the, like, Big 12.
Yeah, it seems to have been built by the Big 12 for the benefit of their kids, and anything else was a secondary concern.
Exactly. So I think he's a really effective character.
Definitely.
He has a cool design. He's just, like, wearing an eye patch.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if this was like he lost an eye or he thinks it looks cool.
I think he must have lost an eye. He's like an eye for an eye or whatever. And maybe it's just...
Oh yeah, that makes sense if he's like a kid of Nemesis.
Maybe he's just, like, being symbolic. Like, he's like... he's like, one, this will make me look cool. Two, it'll be a good one-liner to say when I betray someone.
Okay, but like that is on the level of like Percy carrying around a goldfish in a bag because he's the son of Poseidon.
He might. He carries water within himself.
It's true.
The gods are... This has to build to a big climax.
I mean, the book's called The Battle of the Labyrinth. We haven't gotten the battle yet.
But specifically what I mean is, like, all the stuff with, like, are the gods really that good? All that kind of stuff.
Listen, the gods are going to set up a formal inquiry, which will give some mildly critical results in 2 years that will then be ignored.
Likely. I don't know. I don't think Rick Riordan is, like, a revolutionary leftist.
Oh, definitely not.
And so I do think it's more likely that there is going to be, like, the gods will make some reforms.
That is absolutely what I think is going to happen.
But, hopefully it's at least somewhat satisfying.
I hope so. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to align with our politics to be like, a satisfying narrative.
True. Even if we would prefer it did.
We definitely would. Listen, we want Percy Jackson to be as based as possible.
God. I hate that you say a word sometimes.
Based or bast?
I think bast we're saving for the Kane Chronicles.
No, bast as in Bassed, like the fish.
Okay, we both took two different joke approaches with it. I see.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. We're both good at this.
We did it. Hopefully the audience will laugh twice as hard upon hearing this very funny jape.
Yeah. So, audience, if you laughed, you can send in your laughter to unwisegirlspod@gmail.com. You can do that in an audio recording, or you can do that through just, like, written text, like, ha ha ha. It's up to you. It's your prerogative. Just let us know if you found it funny. We're doing some focus testing right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to record something, you will just have to, like, try your best to replicate the laughter as best as possible. Unless you're recording yourself all the time, which, I mean, I'm recording myself right now, but that would still be weird.
In which case, you're living in Marble Hornets.
In which case, you have much bigger problems than sending in our laughter. You deal with your shit.
And speaking of big problems, let's talk Antaeus.
Let's talk about this big fucking almost naked lad.
We love a big lad. I watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre last night. There were some good big lads in there.
Do they get smaller when they're chainsawed?
No, in fact. It was the big lad carrying the chainsaw.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But that's neither here nor there.
That would improve this fight if Antaeus had a chainsaw.
True, but it's still a pretty good fight.
Yeah, this chapter is like basically wall-to-wall action scenes.
Yes.
And they're like good action scenes.
They are.
Like the first one, Percy just kind of, I didn't even mention it in the summaries because it's so inconsequential. Percy just wins by stabbing his opponent.
Pretty cool.
But the next two, Percy like just uses like wits and guile to get around what his opponent is doing and win. And it's just really satisfying.
Yeah, the fight with Antaeus was very good. Specifically, like, we're always saying this. We got, like, clever Percy solutions to fights. That's always going to be a thing that we praise.
And in this case, Percy's solution was to be Spider-Man.
Yes. What you might not know is that Antaeus is like another stealth Labors of Hercules thing.
Oh, okay.
In some versions of the myth, when Heracles was going to pick the apples of the Hesperides, he ran into Antaeus, the world's, strongest wrestler.
Oh, right.
Antaeus challenged him to a fight, and Hercules just lifted him up into the air and crushed him with a bear hug. Which, awesome, for sure.
So he just kind of wins by being cool and strong.
Yeah, just I bet Percy's not, if he had been inside the water, he could have crushed. Well, no, Antaeus is also a son of Poseidon.
Yeah, no, I think if they were in water, if they were on the seabed, Percy would have died.
Yes. Oh God, no. That would have been the worst combination. But he was actually originally a figure in Berber mythology.
All right.
This is one of those examples of mythologies are not a static thing that originate from one place.
Well, yeah, the Romans pretty much lifted this entire rogues gallery of gods wholesale.
Yeah, and we'll have a lot to talk about with Egypt and the legacy of how much was mixed with Rome and Greece and the conquest. The Egyptians were basically ancient Egyptians were basically okay, we're gonna conquer you and spread our gods everywhere. So, and he was probably incorporated into the mythology after the Greek conquest of Libya. I just think that's interesting.
That is cool. I did not know that. I also didn't know that Antaeus existed before I read this chapter, but
Yeah. So he's a fun villain, I think. You don't get a lot of them. You get a lot of fun villains, but you don't get a lot of super intimidating cool villains like this.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was actually thinking about this. Have we had any really strong central antagonists in a Percy Jackson book?
Other than Kronos.
Well, Kronos is kind of he's being antagonistic, but he's normally not the main focus. He's off in the background doing his own thing.
I think that kind of depends on your definition of antagonist, but I
suppose.
I see what you're saying though. So I think the closest we've had is Polyphemus.
Yeah, definitely. And that was kind of a car crash.
Yeah, we weren't big into the Polyphemus thing. I think that maybe the person who you could consider the main antagonist in this one, or one of the main antagonists, Quintus, is maybe the strongest one we've had so far.
I don't know that Quintus is really antagonisty.
No?
I think maybe it's more Minos.
Maybe.
No, I mean Minos has kind of been behind a lot of the events of this book. He's been working with Kronos all along. He's been pushing Nico along in the background. I don't know. He feels like the villain we've maybe had the most face time with in this book.
That's fair. It kind of is sticking to that pattern though of not having a really central antagonist. Which I think is fine. It works well.
Yeah, no, it hasn't really hurt these books, I'd say.
No. There are some big twists in these chapters.
We are in Twist City. Population Quintus.
Population Quintus. Population Luke?
Question mark.
Let's start with Quintus.
I guarantee you that the fandom name for him is Lucronos.
Lucronos.
It's like Greeling in Full Metal Alchemist.
What if it's Chrono Luke? That'd be pretty cool.
That sounds like an early 2000s RPG that a lot of people say is very good and I have no intention of ever touching.
Play Chrono Trigger. What's wrong with you?
Okay, I'm glad you caught where I was going with that.
It's really good. It's on the DS.
Oh, if it's on the DS, then maybe.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with Quintus. We find out in these chapters... Okay, last episode we came to the conclusion that the coolest possible thing to happen would be that we find out that Quintus isn't working for Kronos or secretly working for Camp Half-Blood, but is in fact just his own free agent.
And we asked, and Rick fucking delivered.
Oh, he did.
I mean, I guess he is kind of an agent of Kronos.
Kind of.
But he's very much like doing it for his own reasons. He is not like committed to the cause or anything. He just is old and has a lot of regrets.
Well, okay, because the big twist we get, as you said in the summary, is that Quintus is Daedalus.
Yeah, Quintus is a fucking Cylon body that Daedalus has downloaded his consciousness into, which rules, by the way.
This is the perfect twist.
Absolutely.
We've been hearing about Daedalus this whole book, and he was inside of the Ubisoft protagonist the entire time.
Wait, Ubisoft protagonist? What makes you say that?
What does Ubisoft do? Are they like Skyrim?
No, that's Bethesda.
Is that From Software?
From Software is Dark Souls.
He's inside of the Nintendo protagonist.
Yeah, it's... Well, I mean, his name is Latin. That makes him an Italian.
He's inside of the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure character.
Okay, this... I feel like you've gone off the rails slightly here. I'm just going to pick you up and place you back onto them.
Thank you. Hey, what's that thing in the distance? Slowly riding towards me.
That is a brick wall with "What if the ending is botched" written on it.
Oh, okay. What are you saying?
Nothing. I just worry.
I understand. These like past what, like 7 to 10 chapters now have been good enough that like I feel like we got the momentum.
Yeah, the initial chapters were kind of dull but inoffensive, and since then we've had some real bangers.
Yes. But I really do want to talk about the Quintus Daedalus twist.
Okay, let's go.
What are your thoughts there?
My thoughts are it's like it's the perfect twist. Mm-hmm. In that it's like, you know, ideally a twist is like you have a bunch of incomplete information and then you finally near the end get given something else and it suddenly puts all of it into perspective and makes everything make sense. And that is like absolutely what this twist does. Like it explains where Quintus came from, it explains why he knew where the Labyrinth was. It explains like why he had contacts with Kronos' people. Like just everything like that. Plus, you know, it's just cool that he's a robot.
Yeah, it all adds up to being the perfect twist. And because of that, we haven't seen a lot of Quintus in this book, but we have seen a lot of Daedalus. Yeah,
definitely.
And the way that the chapter ends, Rachel, Annabeth, Nico, and Percy jumping out of the window, using Daedalus's most famed invention, a new version of it, while Daedalus stays behind, not like to defend the workshop that's burning around him, that he has like killed his family to preserve, but because he doesn't want to leave Mrs. O'Leary behind.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't need to say anything to show that like he is clearly not the same person who let Perdix fall off that cliff.
And it's not even that he's become a better person, but it's still a show of like character growth.
I don't know, he doesn't kill any children in this chapter. I'd say that does make him a better person.
Well, okay, yes, but like it's not that he's become a hero.
Absolutely not.
We've seen inklings of like Daedalus isn't such a bad guy. Like we've seen that like he taught that one king's daughters.
Yeah, he's a feminist.
He's feminist. And and like I don't know, I just think that there was like enough provided beforehand that feels like a very satisfying, what I assume will be a conclusion for his character for at least this book.
Yeah, I'm also like I'm a big fan of the way that like this was obfuscated to us. Like it doesn't feel like cheating really, because like the way that we're kind of prevented from drawing a connection is that Quintus is defined by being a swordmaster, and that's not really like the book doesn't hit you over the head with that. It just shows him with a sword and then talks about him in that context, and then you know justifies it that yeah, of course he'd be good with a sword. He's been alive for 2,000 years. So it's a really neat way of like stopping us from guessing that twist ahead of time.
Right.
Without it feeling like cheap.
Like if he'd been introduced as like, oh, he's the new arts and crafts teacher or like the new like tech I don't know. Like there are a lot of ways to go about it that would have been more obvious.
Yeah, we might have clocked that something was up.
Like you said, it's good obfuscation. I was just like pogging him the entire time. Like he comes out and I'm like, and he's all like, I work only for myself. And I'm like, yes, Quintus is so cool. And then it's like, oh, he's Daedalus. That makes so much sense. And it's still so cool. Credit to you, of course, for, saying the Daedalus will be a free agent thing, or Quintus be a free agent thing.
Thank you.
What else to talk about?
Quintus being the Latin name for 5 to show that it's the 5th body.
We were even talking about, like, isn't it weird that Quintus is his name when, like, we haven't really met any people with Roman names?
Yeah, that sounds kind of weirdly Roman. What's with that?
Turns out.
And if only I'd gone to private school, I might have been able to figure it out.
God. Wait, did they teach you Latin in private school?
Yeah. They teach Percy Latin in private school.
I guess so. They teach Latin in, like, public school, too, here. I think we've had this conversation before.
We have. It's weird.
But everybody knows that Quint means 5.
Excuse you, that's an extremely rude word.
Okay, British person, I'm sorry. Oh, God. What should we talk about now?
Daedalus should play basketball with Percy.
We only want to talk about Daedalus. He does say, like, I've been pretty good at basketball. If he came back, like, while Percy is, like, shooting some hoops and, like, dunked on him, that would be a perfect send-off for his character.
Listen, we've been, like, hearing about Percy enjoys playing basketball for, like, 4 books now as, like, an incidental part of his character, but we've never seen it.
True.
And I feel like playing against a 2,000-year-old robot would be the perfect way to pay that off.
Exactly.
Speaking of excellent payoffs.
Uh-huh.
Luke being in the coffin. That's fucked.
Who boy?
Okay, here's something that I've been wondering about.
Right.
So, like, a piece... Every time that a demigod, like, renounces Camp Half-Blood, a new piece of Kronos goes into the coffin, right?
Right.
And we've also seen that Luke has been looking, like, more sick and fucked up as the series has gone.
Mm-hmm.
Have the parts been coming, like, off Luke and being, like, transferred into the coffin? And this was just, like, the final bit of him being, like, transferred from outside into the coffin?
Christ,
Has he been, like, missing organs this whole time?
I hope not. That seems like too... Because he was only missing, like, a little piece of his, like, chest or whatever.
Yeah, I guess it'd be kind of weird if that was just, like, lying on the ground somewhere.
Right. Somebody was, like, carrying it in a cup. one of the Draconae.
Kelly just has it in her back pocket.
But, like, we just saw Luke, and he was pretty fully formed.
That's true, yeah.
Maybe a lot of people joined really fast. No, okay, that doesn't make sense either.
Well, maybe none of them have renounced the gods yet. They just did, like, a lightning round and got everyone to do it at once.
That could have been it. So, there's a lot of good payoff. The first one, okay, so it's Luke in that coffin, which makes... Because we've been talking about this. We've been saying, like, oh, why isn't Luke carrying a sword? Why isn't Luke carrying a sword? It must be because he's, like... It must be because he's planning on turning against Kronos. He's finally, like, lost his loyalty.
Redemption arc, let's go.
No. Nope. It turns out, no.
See, I'm kind of torn on this.
Uh-huh.
Because on the one hand, like, it turning out that Backbiter was the weapon that was being worked on in Mount St. Helens. You know, that's a good payoff to, like, the fact that Luke hasn't been carrying that sword this whole time.
Right.
On the other hand, I really like Backbiter as a villain weapon, and I'm kind of heartbroken to see it get, like, melted into something else when we've only really had, like, one full-blown duel between Percy and Luke using Backbiter.
Right. I can agree with that. I think it's, like, obviously, it's, like, good. Like, this sword I've seen him carrying around the whole time was actually, like, Cronus's old scythe or whatever.
Yeah.
That's cool. And it's also, like, an effective, like, symbol in hindsight of, like, how Luke was basically being groomed this whole time for Kronos' body.
Definitely. And I guess you could also say that, like, because Luke talks about Backbiter as if it's a new sword when he first takes it out.
Mm-hmm.
which kind of, you could say that shows that he wants to embrace like a new world without the gods. But it's actually just Kronos' old fucked up scythe that he is swinging around again. So, he's actually just regressing everything by trying to take out the gods.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm an English student. I don't know if you could tell. I sound like an asshole whenever I talk about anything in the book.
No, you don't. You sound you sound very normal today.
Thank you.
Because you're right. Because this was like the tool that that Kronos used to kill the gods, and he's been using it this whole time. It's good that way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just such an effective reveal. Like, this is exactly right. This is where the series needed to go with Luke's character.
Yeah, definitely. I also wonder if, like, this is a move also motivated by the fact that, like, it is a kids' book series.
Mm-hmm.
And to show Backbite to being used to its full potential, Luke would have to, like, hack a mortal to pieces.
He'd have to kill Rachel Elizabeth Dare.
He would probably have to do something like that, and I don't think that Rick was going to get let away with that by the publisher.
No, certainly not. It's a good weapon because of the threat it carries.
Yeah.
But it's not a gun that can be fired.
Yeah, so maybe this was the right thing to do with it, disappointing as it might be.
And, the new weapon is cool too.
Definitely. What do you think of, like, the fight between, well, quote-unquote fight between Kronos and Luke? No, Kronos and Percy, sorry.
The fight, the quote-unquote fight, is terrifying.
It's short and sweet and exactly what, like, a villain introduction needs to be.
Specifically the villain of the entire series.
Yeah.
This is showing off, like some of the power that Kronos has, which I know that like his position of Lord of Time, like, well, how are you going to use, like, time powers? The answer is
the world.
The world, yeah. It's like, it's not much of a fight, and it ends in a very good way, which is Rachel chucking a shoe or a hairbrush.
Yeah, it's a pink plastic hairbrush that, like, hits him in the eye.
Mm-hmm. And I'm into that for sure. Rachel gets a W.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't have anything bad to say about it because it's short, it's sweet, it shows off exactly what kind of threat the Kronos is.
Yeah, Percy just gets the absolute shit kicked out of him.
He, like, flicks a finger and Percy flies across the room.
Yeah, and just, like, smashes into a marble pillar.
This is what the fight against Ares, like, could have been.
Yeah, well, I guess the difference maker there was that, like, Percy was next to the sea.
Exactly.
Here, he is on top of a mountain several hundred meters above sea level.
Exactly. This is the power of, like, the gods and the titans that we've seen in short bursts through usually, like, non-combat situations that are usually on Percy's side.
Yeah, the only time we've really gotten a taste of this was the fight with Atlas at the end of Titan's Curse. And even then, Atlas was very clearly not as strong as Kronos.
Atlas was mostly just a really big guy.
Also, I want to point out one of my favorite details from this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Which is that when Percy pokes his head out onto Mount Orthus, he can still hear Atlas screaming.
Oh my god.
Like, he's still just up there screaming and swearing and cursing Percy's name, which I just find incredibly funny.
It's very funny. We've talked about, like, oh, this is all so epic. But it's also got, like, a lot of moments of humor in it.
Oh, definitely. Daedalus being good at basketball, Atlas being trapped in eternal torment.
Lots of very funny things like that.
Oh, actually, sorry, just to circle back to chapter 14.
Uh-huh.
Just kind of add to what you were saying about how, Ethan is kind of showing off, again, how fucked up the gods are. I feel like it's left kind of ambiguous if the offerings that Antaeus is making in the arena are actually accepted by Poseidon. Because, like, there's Poseidon flags everywhere, there's skulls everywhere, and, they've taken, like, ritual sacrifice of food before. You could put people in there.
Oh, for sure. Like, with the characterization we've gotten of Poseidon, I feel like it's probably going to be one of those things where it's like, well, Antaeus is my son, but he's on a bad path or something like that.
Back in the old days, I might have accepted tributes like that, but I have advanced beyond that now.
It could be. Or maybe it could be something a little bit more interesting of like, well, he's my son too, and I just want to, like that kind of thing.
Man, what if like getting fucked up worship like that like made the god more evil?
Oh my god.
Like, I just think that would be like a cool concept if it like corrupts them.
Yeah, I can see that. That would be a cool story idea, I think. If that was part of this, I would not complain.
Yeah, I'm just going to write down Aphrodite corruption as a story idea and then move on.
I just think this would be really funny. I just thought like a really funny idea for it. What if the more corrupt she got, like the bigger she got, like she maybe she grew like the size of a building. Wouldn't it be funny?
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, you could even justify that by saying, she cares less about people seeing her godly form, and etc. and etc.
Right. Like it, like maybe she like takes her shoes off.
We need to stop.
We
have to be stopped.
I'm sorry, Aphrodite. Sorry, sorry, listeners.
You've angered our patron goddess. Our listener numbers are going to go down now.
Speaking of listener numbers, shout outs to our listeners who have apparently been listening a lot more recently.
Yeah, the numbers went up.
And also shout out to my good friend, Darling Demon Eclipse, on Twitch and Twitter.
Shit, yeah.
Who shouted us out on her stream of Hades, I think.
That was really cool. Thank you.
Yeah. What were we saying?
Listener numbers.
How'd we get there? Aphrodite's feet.
That. Listen, that will drive up our listener numbers, I feel like. I have faith in this idea. You could say that it has legs.
Oh, speaking of legs.
Okay.
Goat legs.
Furry legs.
Yeah, furry legs.
When we get to this scene in the Percy Jackson show, I mean, it's going to be full of like Hercules references anyway, because it's a Disney thing.
Right.
And I think that Pan should be played by Danny DeVito.
That'd be really good. This was a nice resolution.
It was... Ugh. It had me feeling some kind of way.
What was that kind of way?
Where Pan is like, oh yeah, well, the climate's fucked. Guess you should do something about that. And then does like the meme where he like does the peace sign and then fades away.
I mean, I don't think it was that hopeless. Specifically what he said when he died was, remake the wild a little at a time, each in your own corner of the world. You cannot wait for anyone else, even a god, to do that for you. And like, this is a message everyone needs to hear, right? Like, it's a combination of like, you got to do the little things, like, rewild your areas, and plant things that'll help the world, and also like a slight combination with that meme that's like, I cannot get past the inescapable feeling that I am morally obliged to blow up oil infrastructure. Which it's very much like a combination of those two things.
See, I didn't feel like it was really a combination. I thought it lent way more on like the individualistic stuff, like especially in the way that like Pan dies and his power like goes into each of them.
Well, I would disagree, because Pan has this little thing where he's like, well, my name used to mean rustic, but now it means all. Everyone has to work together to like save the wilds, basically.
I don't know. It's not as bad as this for sure, but to me it had the same kind of energy as like there was a recent episode of Doctor Who, which was like about climate change TM.
Right.
And it's basically like, oh, this planet got fucked over by climate change. And then at the end, the Doctor has this whole thing where she's like, well, the solution to this is that people need to face facts and change.
Right.
And then the episode ends. And then, like, again, this is not that bad, but I feel like it's almost similar in some ways.
What I would say is that, like, I understand what you're saying, and, like, there is that element of, like, Pan isn't saying like, and you need to destroy the corporations that are destroyed. But to me, it doesn't come across as like a stop using plastic straws. It's very much a like plant gardens, like make the world better in little ways that you, as much as you can, and in big ways too.
Go and chill out with Calypso and plant moonflowers.
Well, I was gonna say, because Calypso also says to Percy, like, when you get back to Manhattan, plant a garden for me.
Oh yeah.
I think that together like really creates sort of a message of like,
if you live in a paved over area, simply plant a garden.
Well, there are like, obviously, like, it's difficult, but like, I think if Percy Jackson, if this book doesn't end with Percy like going home and like planting flowers in the cracks of the street and like making a little garden,
he goes home and he buys a Hummer.
God, it'll be worse off, is what I mean. Like,
yeah,
this is a big part of the book in the series, and I think that like, I understand what you're saying. It does sound like a little bit of the whole like, you know, don't use too much water or whatever.
You gotta do your bit to save the bees, and then everything will be fixed.
But I feel like it's more like everyone does need to do something. Like, part of it is obviously like you need to take out the corporations that are doing this to the world. But part of it is also like, and we all also then have to work to like replace what's been destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see that. It's possible that I've been spending the last few weeks trying not to slide into being like a doomer.
I see what you're saying.
So it's possible that I'm just in that headspace.
I totally get you. Like, the ocean was just on fire.
It sure was.
I get what you're saying.
You think Percy's okay?
Oh no, I hope so.
Listen, he carries the ocean within him. Does that mean that he was on fire when that happened?
Oh no. Good question. Maybe Poseidon's beard got a little burned.
I mean, he could do with that. He'd look more like Hephaestus, who is one of the coolest god designs.
Yeah, we didn't really go into like how kind of actually like gross the description of him was, and like,
there was a couple of things that we got caught up in the hype of how good some of the bits of those chapters were, and we kind of forgot to address some other things.
Yeah. We'll say this, that framing of Hephaestus was not particularly kind at all. And like,
hideous, I believe, is the word that was used.
Hideous. One might even say that it was kind of deplorable.
A little bit.
And this is kind of a persistent problem.
Speaking of persistent problems, in chapter 12, the only bad bit of that chapter is where Rick Riordan continues to have a problem with homeless people existing.
Which one is that?
Percy like looks in the mirror and looks at his reflection and says, wow, if I saw a guy like this begging for money in the road, I would lock the car windows.
Oh my, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Rick, get your act together.
So yeah, Rick probably is not going to advocate, revolution at the end of this book series.
No, it's unfortunate that... It's unfortunate.
Hey, what's Rachel Elizabeth Dare's deal?
She's rich.
She's definitely like... Yeah, she's incredibly wealthy. She probably owns like the limo company or something.
What I've gathered is that like, she's a rich girl. Her parents don't care about her. Something happened with her mom.
Mm-hmm.
Or her dad or something. And that's what I've got so far.
Her dad is definitely like dumping nuclear waste into a river somewhere. Is like the vibe that what Pan says to her has.
Yeah. And she was like, she calls up a limo and I'm like, oh, she's rich. It's okay that Annabeth hates her. But I'm like, oh no, Annabeth is rich too.
Oh shit, yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah, her dad owns planes.
The rich girls are fighting.
Percy, meanwhile, simply lives in a flat in Manhattan.
Uh-huh.
Poor guy.
Poor guy.
Has to interact with them all this time.
Uh-huh. What do you think about Rachel Elizabeth Dare?
I like her just fine. I don't know that these chapters do a whole lot for her character.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's mostly just building intrigue and mystery around what her actual backstory is, while she obstinately refuses to explain it.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. She and Annabeth end up bonding by the end, though.
That is nice, where they're just, like, talking about buildings.
Yeah, And like, they connect on that level of like, art and architecture, not so different, intersecting in a lot of ways. And I think that's like, that was necessary. We get do we want to keep talking about this, about like the Annabeth jealousy thing, because there's more of that in these.
I'm over it. I don't care. It certainly exists.
I'm thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know. It's obviously a romantic based thing now.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we are actually getting hints of a love triangle.
Kind of.
Well, because Rachel like, straight up has a bit where
she blushes.
Fucking yeah, I didn't want to save you or anything, Barker.
A little bit. I don't think it's gonna go that way. I hope it doesn't.
Please, God, no.
I'm glad that it's like Annabeth. She's presented as having a character flaw.
Yeah.
For being like, which is good, because we talked in the first time we talked about this about how like it was kind of like presented maybe in a bit of a normalized way.
Did we?
No, yeah, when we talked about like Annabeth seeing them come out of the place or whatever, and
oh yeah,
you brought up that like it's kind of annoying that Percy doesn't like challenge her on that or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm glad that like it's being shown that this is like something Annabeth is like working through, kind of.
Yeah, she seems to be like making a bit of an effort now, at least.
But not only that, but it also seems to be like part of a larger thing with her. Like Annabeth has like a breakdown in these chapters, like at the end.
Uh-huh. I'm sorry, I'm sleepy.
Good night, Jane. While Jane is asleep, let's do a special ASMR episode. So Annabeth knows that something is going on, and it's certainly affecting her mental state, because she's having just like some panic attacks type of thing. It's definitely like she's been acting weird this whole time. It seems like we're getting closer to maybe figuring out the reason why that is. Maybe figuring out that lost line of the prophecy. And I think that her jealousy over Percy kind of when it fits along with that same thing, it goes down a little bit easier, and I appreciate that.
What? Hi, I'm awake again.
Good morning.
Hello. I heard everything that you said in my dream because it was prophetically sent to me.
Oh yay.
I hadn't considered that maybe like the jealousy thing is something to do with the prophecy, which that might make it a bit more tolerable in retrospect if it turns out to be like another big twist.
And it can't all be attributed to that, because she hadn't heard the prophecy yet when she first met Rachel.
Well, yeah.
But I imagine it's at least partially that.
Okay, but we are agreed. The child of Athena's final stand is definitely Daedalus dying, right?
Yes.
Like, that has to be what it is. Maybe we even saw it already. Oh, no, wait, no, because they said he didn't die.
Nico knows when every single person dies.
Yeah, that must suck.
Yeah. He's like, it's a ringing in my ears. And I'm like, how, like, is it just people you know, or is it like when anybody dies?
Maybe it's within like 100 yards.
Could be. I'm guessing it's like he knows when anybody he's met dies, because like otherwise that'd be way too many people.
Yeah, that would be kind of horrible.
Uh-huh. Nico has it good in these chapters.
Nico he's coming back.
We learned that he didn't like angstily run off to go, try and kill someone to get their soul, but he actually only went back into the labyrinth because Minos told him that he could help save Percy.
Exactly.
Which I really like. Nico has had a lot of like inner conflict through here. It's part of why I wish that he was one of the main characters of this book.
Yeah, it feels like he maybe hasn't gotten as much play as he should have.
Yeah, but I do enjoy that, like, we're seeing that he's not just like, I hate you all suck, like, he took his sister's words to heart.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I like that he's just like a good egg, and also like a angsty egg.
Also, I'm deeply sorry, Jacqueline.
What's up?
But my assertion from the end of last week's episode has been further vindicated by these chapters.
What was that?
My assertion that this book series is turning into a fucking harem anime.
Who's been added now?
Nico.
God damn it. I mean, kind of, but like...
That's what we see in later books.
I don't know. I don't know. I guess so. He's cool here, though. He's like, I am the king of death or whatever. And
yeah, that rules.
It's like, Minos is like, I'm the lord of spirits, the ghost king. And Nico's like, no, I am. And then like sends Minos straight to hell. He can also like just like earthbend.
Also, what's with that?
Well, I mean, Hades' domain is like also like the earth itself a little bit.
I guess, but also we just had the earth god.
Well, not the earth god, the earth.
But that seems more. Wait, Poseidon just like dig a hole in the ground and...
Oh, we can't. I gotta cut that. You can't say that. I'm bleeping that. I mean,
after the Aphrodite thing, I feel like that's not too far beyond the pale. Anyway,
you could listen to that and have no idea what we're talking about. Is my firm belief. Is there anything else?
I don't think we've missed anything.
I think we got everything. I hope Ethan seems like he could be cool. I hope he sticks around.
Ethan seems like he just kind of doesn't give a fuck.
Which I like.
Like, he just starts talking to Percy while they're fighting.
Yeah.
And then his version of renouncing the gods is, yeah, whatever, fuck it, I don't care.
I dig it. I dig it for sure.
But I hope that he finds a way to just chill out somewhere that isn't an awful demon army.
Because they did, let us not forget, make him fight to the death.
It's true, and it's kind of weird that you went back to them after that.
I don't know. Maybe he's like, I don't know what he's doing. He's the kid of the god of betrayal or revenge.
Yeah, be sure that he's not the kid of the god of poor decision making.
I mean, sometimes same thing.
It's very true.
I think that's gonna be it for us. We want to do like.
I think, yeah.
We want to go to our segment?
I think we should go to our segment and then wrap things up.
All right. Percy Jackson characters are not cishet.
It's true. Do you have any ideas for your pick for this week?
I think my pick is... Let's go with Antaeus. Wrestles men. That's...
I mean, yeah, ancient Greek wrestling... I assume there was probably some gay shit going on there.
And let's be clear, he did wrestle to the death, but also, you know.
Maybe within that fiery cauldron, maybe love can bloom on the battlefield.
Yeah. Maybe while Hercules is crushing you in his arms, you find a bit of romance there.
My pick is the tourist who loses his cab to Rachel and the other kids because being inconvenienced by rich assholes is an everyday queer experience.
I didn't hear what you said, but I'm gonna because my brain died. I'm so sorry. I don't know.
Everyone, Jacqueline's brain has been leaking out of her ears for this entire episode because she's thinking about Aphrodite's feet.
Shut up. I'm gonna go walk outside and stomp around because I'm so mad. Goodbye, everyone.
Wait, we need to actually wrap up the episode.
Thank you for drinking of our nectar.
That's the wrong thing.
Who did you actually say? I need to figure it out.
I said the tourist who gets his ride jacked by Rachel and the others.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, no, he's there's a whole bit where the guy who drives it is like, yeah, you're just gonna have to wait half an hour for another one. Sorry, your day's fucked.
That's terrible.
It is.
Poor guy. I believe in him. Homophobia one day will lose.
But not this day.
Not this day. I think that'll do it for us today. We've had a messy one today, folks.
We've had a bit of a messy one. These chapters were jam-packed.
But we're enjoying it.
Oh, absolutely. I think it was just unfortunate that because we tried to keep the number of pages consistent, and we just we so happened to have to pick 4 chapters where everything gets resolved and all sorts of twists are coming to light, and we had just a shitload of stuff to talk about.
Right. But if you'd like to reach the show, check us out on Twitter at Unwise Girls. There you can find our email, the link to our Discord server, and everything else. If you want to support us, you can find us on patreon.com/unwisegirls. You can also leave a rating or review or tell your friends. Everything really helps. On our Patreon, for $1 a month, you get a special role on our Discord, marking you as a camp counselor, and the very good feeling that you are helping a struggling podcast out.
Yeah.
For $3, you get an even specialer role as a friend of Dionysus and access to all of our special bonus content. If you're feeling super especially generous, for $5, you get the specialist role of Aphrodite's Chosen, all of our bonus content, and a special shout out at the end of episodes.
Speaking of, this week we'd like to thank Mercy, Veronica Friend, and Erica. Jane, please come up with a funny nickname for me, Faye. So, Erica, for this week, your nickname is Aphrodite's Feet.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And as we always say, at the end of every single episode...
See you next week, Camp Half-Blood.
See you next week, Camp Half-Blood.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, Erica, for this week, your nickname is Aphrodite's Feet.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And as we always say, at the end of every single episode...
See you next week, Camp Half-Blood.
See you next week, Camp Half-Blood.
Bye-bye.
Bye.